Tonight, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has reported 23 additional COVID-19 cases and 1 death in its statistics for yesterday, June 14. Public health officials now have faster and easier access to accurate data on the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in Jamaica through the full rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination ComCare software.
With the use of this technology, we can quickly report and announce that 10,608 Jamaicans have been inoculated with the second dose of the vaccine, while 815 have received their first dose during the Blitz this past weekend.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness urges teachers to get vaccinated ahead of the September school term.
The level of take-up is not sufficient in my mind to put us on a firm pathway for the return of face-to-face education.
And another female was shot dead in Trenchtown today, less than 48 hours after a 16-year-old girl was killed and another man injured during a drive-by shooting in the community. Good evening. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has reported 23 additional COVID-19 cases and 1 death in its statistics for yesterday, June 14. The number of confirmed cases since the outbreak on the island now stands at 49,379, while the death of a 37-year-old man has pushed total fatalities to 1,012. Another death was also reported as coincidental. The new cases comprise 14 females and 9 males, with ages ranging from 14 years old to 87 years old. 9 of the cases were in St. Catherine, 6 were in Clarendon, 3 in Kingston and St. Andrew, and 2 in St. James. Hanover, Manchester, and St. Anne each had 1. 187 COVID-19 patients also recovered on Monday, bringing total recoveries to 27,919. Active cases are now 20,071, of which 131 are hospitalized. 28 persons are moderately ill and 9 in critical condition. Public health officials now have faster and easier access to accurate data on the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in Jamaica through the full rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination ComCare software. The technology, which has already been introduced at hospitals, health centers, and special vaccination centers across the island, provides the Health Ministry with information on vaccine doses and sites, and enables the analysis of data by parishes and regions, including allowing for time frame comparisons. It was purchased by the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, with training sponsored by the Private Sector Vaccination Initiative, PSVI. Addressing a virtual ceremony to officially launch the system yesterday, Ministry of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton said it is allowing for real-time data gathering and efficiency in decision-making.
So we have had to collaborate with international partners, UNICEF, and drawing on the expertise, of course, from the Private Sector Vaccination Initiative to set out to provide a solution that would allow us to the ease of data entry and analysis of the targeted population. Peter did say that I pushed the timelines. I'm very happy that we are there now, and I've seen the data, the software in action last Saturday, not this Saturday gone, the next one before, where I was able to observe, see the inputting, see real-time information. I was told up to the minute how many persons had gone through the process, male, female, and I'm sure you'll see some other features of the system. But data is fundamental to analysis and to quick response and quick action in whatever you do. And so to the extent that you can move so quickly, it really creates an opportunity for us in terms of the efficiency of the response. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we have the COVID-19 vaccine Coms Care software. That's Coms Care, COMMSCARE, that captures demographic and basic health information of over, to date, 160,000 Jamaicans who have so far received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine manufactured by AstraZeneca. So we now have all of that information on this software, and this is therefore able to help us in assessing where we are, where we need to go, what are the challenges in terms of those who may have had the vaccine, and so on.
In highlighting the efficiency of the system, Dr. Tufton said that with the use of this technology, they can quickly report and announce that 10,608 Jamaicans have been inoculated with the second dosage of the vaccine.
Several data points at our disposal, which the Ministry of Health and Wellness is able to analyze, including data by parish, by region, doses, vaccination sites, time frame comparisons, and more. The software has been fully rolled out across the island in hospitals, health centers, and special vaccination centers. With the use of this technology, we can quickly report and announce that 10,608 Jamaicans have been inoculated with the second dose of the vaccine, while 815 have received their first dose during the blitz this past weekend. So this would be this weekend past. Now, I would have to say, wait a little for me to get this kind of information. I say, give me another week or so to pull everything. I can tell you right at the end of the day, which is an indication of the benefits.
Country representative for UNICEF, Mariko Kagoshima, in her remarks said the software helps in the management of the COVID-19 vaccination process. Meanwhile, chairman of the PSVI, Peter Mello, said his group is committed to supporting the vaccination program, not only in terms of logistics and on technical matters, but also mobilizing the support of the productive sector to increase take-up of the vaccine. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is urging teachers to get vaccinated. He was speaking during the Office of the Prime Minister and Ministry of Education, Youth and Information virtual town hall looking at vaccine sensitization for the education system, as well as arrangements for the exit exams. And here is Khalid May with more on this story.
With 40% of teachers already taken the COVID-19 vaccine, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, in a town hall meeting on vaccine sensitization for the education system, appealed to teachers that this is not sufficient for schools to return to face-to-face classes with a level of confidence.
First, let me thank you for taking the vaccines. And I'm saying it generally. I could be a little bit more specific and say, let me thank those who have taken the vaccine, which amounts to about 40% of the maybe 19,000 teachers that we officially have registered in the system. The level of take-up is not sufficient in my mind to put us on a firm pathway for the return of face-to-face education. I know that there is hesitancy, and indeed, in terms of the organization of the teaching profession and the leadership of the teaching profession, there might be some differences in approach to the vaccines. I want to take the opportunity to appeal to the leaders of the teaching profession and to the teachers themselves that we will not be able to return to face-to-face education with confidence if we do not have a sufficiently high level of teachers vaccinated. In my mind, and I'm not speaking now as a public health professional, Melody's here, she could tell you what that number would be. We have targeted 65% of the population for us to have herd immunity, but we would like to see upwards of 80% of our teachers vaccinated.
The Prime Minister is also encouraging teachers in the vulnerable age group to get vaccinated.
Particularly, we would like to see those teachers who are in the vulnerable age range vaccinated. As you would see from the statistics provided for the general population, that the risk rises very rapidly for a fatal event if infected after you have passed 60. So teachers who are closer to 60 or past 60 who are still operating in the system, maybe our principals, some of our senior teachers, we urge you to get vaccinated. If you have comorbidities, and we know that comorbidities are high in the population, particularly as it relates to diabetes, heart conditions, and so forth. So, obesity. So we encourage persons who are predisposed or who are currently suffering from any of these ailments to get vaccinated.
Mr. Holness said that if the government and stakeholders decide that schools will return to face-to-face classes in September, all teachers will be required to do so.
We have, from the Cabinet with the Ministry of Education and stakeholders, we have decided that the country is at a state where we can go back to face-to-face, then all teachers would be expected to return to the classroom in fulfillment of their contractual and employment obligations. So, yeah, if there is a decision to return to the classroom, all teachers would be required so to do. Of course, if there is a medical exemption, that would be treated in the normal course. You know, we're a democracy, and I want to emphasize that. But the essence of the democracy is that when government policy and laws are in place, we require the reasonable and rational individual to follow it, incentive or no incentive. We have given incentives for more targeted towards a vulnerable age group to get them to go out and get the vaccines. We are looking at some implied incentives, for example, in how we structure the quarantine process. We have not yet put out any other forms of incentives. The truth is, and let me just level with you, it is in your interest to take the vaccine. It is your interest to take the vaccine. And so we are now using moral suasion. We are now engaging. There's scarcely any public engagement that I have where I do not specify in very clear terms and in encouraging terms the need for all citizens to get vaccinated.
Reporting for Mello TV News, I'm Kayleen May.
Meanwhile, Minister of Education, Youth and Information Favour Williams says schools are in preparation mode in the event that they return to face-to-face classes come September.
All things on the ground are ready. We've been working with the Ministry of Health and Wellness to ensure that our school grounds are examined and they pass the tests for the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And we will continue to work during the summer to ensure that everything is in place for the upcoming school year. So should the Prime Minister give the go-ahead for face-to-face, we don't have to be, hemming and hawing, because we would have spent the time to be ready. And of course, schools have been told to do temperature checks of students to ensure that there are wash stations all around. And in my going around to schools, I am seeing wash stations everywhere in schools. The ministry has ensured that schools continue to get hand sanitizers and other type of equipment to help them to ensure that once the students turn up, they're in a safe environment. Parents and students will be very happy to know that there's an active task force with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, and the Prime Minister's ministry to ensure that we have broadband connectivity across Jamaica, but more specifically, early in the process, we're targeting our schools. So already we have looked at all our schools across Jamaica. We've made the determination as to exactly what's the minimum bandwidth those schools should have, how it's to be managed. Right now, across our schools, it's left up to each individual school to pay their own internet bill and so forth. The new model that we're looking at would have the ministry take a more active role in terms of ensuring that our schools have connectivity. So we're working on that. We have a goal to have the rollout of that before September to as many schools as possible across the system.
Minister Williams also announced the summer school program that will be part of helping students to catch up on their education due to the setbacks from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Education takes time. Learning takes time. And in order for us to catch up, to have our students catch up to where they were before the pandemic and to move them further, we have to spend more time. And so we are in the planning phases right now for summer. You will hear more about it as we approach. I think in the next couple of weeks, next week, we will unveil exactly what the plans are. Our theme, and I can reveal that now, our theme will be Recovering Smarter. And it's obviously will be voluntary, but if you want to recover smarter, we'd suggest that you look at what we're offering and what we're coming with for the summer. In terms of extending this school year, by default, it has already been extended because the exams have been pushed into July, into way down, and August. So that's where we are now. We're encouraging our students. Yes, we know, and parents, we know you've been living through the pandemic and we know the hardship and so on, but we have to make all the preparations, and we have to ensure that your education is still accessible, regardless of whether it's summer, regardless of whether it's night or day, and we have the technology. We can scale it up across the system, and we have a responsibility to do so.
And Acting Chief Education Officer Dr. Kassan Troop is encouraging parents to allow their students to take part in this summer program.
Somewhat extension of the school year in the form of our summer school. I know some persons have said to us that they are not in support of that, but from what our minister would have indicated, the education system has a responsibility to do every single thing, every possible strategy that can be available to support students' learning. We will have to try that, and we want to make sure that our boys and girls have that opportunity. So come very soon, as school ends officially the 2nd of July. So following week, right after the 2nd of July, we will start the engagement of our boys and girls in our summer school interface using our hybrid model. We are going to be spending the next couple of weeks finding those students that have disengaged. You would have heard our minister talking about that 120,000 persons missing out of our schools. Those are the persons we are trying to find, and the opportunity is now available. Now that we're going to close school fully, now we have the physical space to bring back these students in, to work with our service providers. We are going to be prioritizing. We have no other option but to try every single learning opportunity to reach our boys and girls.
Dr. Angela Brownberg, Shadow Minister of Education and Training, says the opposition is heartened by the Minister of Education's announcement that summer school will be voluntary for students. Given the challenges faced by parents and students over the past several months, Dr. Brownberg believes that this is the only sensible decision. In a statement today, Dr. Brownberg is again calling for national collaboration with all education stakeholders during this time. She expressed that the minister must quickly engage educators who have a good understanding of the depth and complexity of the issues facing the education system to help craft solutions. She maintains that there are enough examples of institutions that are doing well and from which struggling schools can learn. Further, on the basis of what is already known about the challenges faced by educators and parents, the Shadow Minister is urging Minister Williams to provide the country with an indication of the initial budgetary support that will be provided to help principals and administrators prepare for the new school year. Dr. Brownberg is again highlighting the need to pay greater attention to the early childhood and special education sectors. She implores the minister to build a national consensus around a retention and remediation program for children who have fallen way behind in the development of their literacy and numeracy skills. In other news, mobile blood pressure machines and arm cuffs of assorted sizes were yesterday handed over by the Rotary Club of St. Andrew North to the Ministry of Health and Wellness for distribution to 15 hospitals. 36 wheeled internal mobile blood pressure machines and 159 cuffs of assorted sizes for infants and children were also included in the donation, which is valued at US $40,000. Speaking during the handover ceremony, State Minister in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, noted that inadequate supplies of mobile blood pressure monitors and children arm cuffs have impacted some rural hospitals in how they are able to respond effectively with treatment. Of the 15 hospitals that are set to receive the new equipment, 13 are from rural areas. Minister Cuthbert Flynn said, quote, "Today's handover ceremony marks a step in the right direction as the ministry, through this generous gift, seeks to improve and advance the quality of healthcare across Jamaica, especially to our children and adolescent population," end quote. Meanwhile, the pediatric nephrology centers at the Bustamante Hospital for Children, University Hospital of the West Indies, and at the Cornwall Regional Hospital will receive a 24-hour continuous ambulatory blood pressure monitor for children, according to former president of the Rotary Club of St. Andrew North, Henleith and Anne-Marie Curtis. Another female was shot dead in Trenchtown today, less than 48 hours after a 16-year-old girl was killed and another man injured during a drive-by in the community. The deceased in the latest attack has been identified as LaFane Bent, a shop operator in the community. Reports are that Bent was sitting at her shop on 3rd Street when she was approached by a lone gunman who opened a fire, hitting her multiple times in her upper body. She was rushed to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. The attack comes less than 48 hours after 16-year-old Damoya Hall was shot and killed and another man injured in the same community. That attack came in the form of a drive-by shooting. The police did not provide any information that suggested that the attacks were linked. The latest attack has, however, triggered high levels of fear, and there are reports that some residents are moving out of the community. Member of Parliament Mark Golding has said that the attacks were carried out by gang members locked in an ongoing feud. And those are some of the stories making news. We will return with other stories, with a man who reportedly chased and fired several shots at a tour bus operator in Blenheim, Hanover on Monday, being cornered and chopped to death by angry residents, as well as news that the police are reporting the seizure of 4 firearms and more than 20 rounds of ammunition in various operations across the island on Monday. But first, let's take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.